Now let us go through these 7 items one by one and discuss about the details of each one of these. We have the kind of assembled all of the components of the BDCTN model of shu'ur or shi'riya or the serious or shi'r or poetry or consciousness or word. And now we're gonna discuss about the dynamics that are ongoing among these static components. Here we have the subjective logic and then the shift of the paradigm from disbelief to uncertainty, and this is the experiential shift, and then from uncertainty to belief. And so here is basically from مكذبون فويل للمكذبون, or from the denial of the beauty all the way to believe in the beauty, or believe in the husna hozanahi order that the white hole inside the black hole is producing, or basically the Christ tajalli screen of Allah is producing inside the dark room, or the misbah or the lamp that is working inside the dark room. So now that we have looked at the static elements of the BDCTN model arc, allow my certainty I, or the Atman Mutma'inna confidence core, or the confident core that is depicted in the figure 6, to elaborate on the conscious dynamics of the bidirectional double conic neurological model arc of shu'ur or shirias or serious or sheer or consciousness. Let me start by commenting about figure 6, which is related to the subjective logic or the soul reasoning. This one is basically the figure 6. From the night of the willpower, or the night of the Qadr, or night of the transfiguration, and seeing Allah behind the Christ, and also the Holy Spirit behind the Christ, or in Christian terminology it is called the Godhead. From the night of the willpower, or Qudrat, or Qatirot, or Keter, or the amount of the vastness of the willpower, or hope, or yearning for reaching to the beloved and losing the ego, or the hope horsepower, or taqwa, or kiviti, or qawa, or quwwat, or taqwiyat, or weight power, or the willpower. And that I saw, and as I mentioned, it was in November, one of the Tuesdays of the November 2014, that I saw the whitely moonshining Messiah, or Prophet Khidr, or the metamorphosed Mahishasura, or the full moon disk, or the Isa Yasperahi Ruh Rak, or Ruh Ruhaon, or Ruh and Ru and face, my evil eye, or ethnos thanatos tian tinati did I. Again, the ethnos thanatos means the Gentiles, the pagans, or the tian, the heaven of the Helions, or basically as did zero I in the Tinat, or the animal instinct, or the animalistic psyche, or the base psychic platform. that cares about thinking, sex, stomach, under the belly, on top of the belly, all of the 7 chakras of the Kundalini column, just like any other animal. However, the presence of the agency of Holy Allah is, or Holy Allah is absent in that cognition. And so my evil eye, or my Tinati dead eye, or the pagan eye pit, or the gentle eye, or the naturally naked eye. Again, this is for the when we say natural in as for the Tinat, we say this is an inborn character. This is the beast that is for every single one of us, or this is the characteristics of the proud, puffing, constantly fermenting pot paste by which we are made, or our minds are made. That needs to be denuclearized or aphrodisiacs in order to cool down and in order to turn into a human. And so again, we call it the Tinat, or the clay, or the teen, or the inborn characteristic. And at the other side of the Tinat, we have the Fitrat, and that's where the, again, Asura 35 comes. Asura 35 is talking about, and that's what basically if we go to Asura 35, you can see that what is poured inside the Tinat is Fatir, or the originator, or Fitrat. And what is Fitrat? Fitrat is very similar to Tinat, but there is a difference there. The Fitrat is where the faith is coming, or the soul of a believer is called Fitrat, or again, although they are translated as Gharizat or instinct, however, there is a difference here. What's the difference? The difference is that the Fitrat is coming from Fatir, and Fatir, or the Father, is all that Christ has to give to us, because it's the only way to Allah, Fatir, or the creator, or the father in English, or Fatir, and so it comes from Fatara. And Fatara, the root word of the Fatara is like feeding, and that is precisely what we talk about. That's the fast breaking, or breakfast, or bringing into being, creating, fashioning, forming. And so iftar, for instance, is the fast breaking. And so Fitrat is feed my sheep, when Christ 3 times says in John 21, feed my sheep. That's the Fitrat, or feeding, or the fooding, or the fuading, or basically putting, or like the parable of the sower, seeder, that seeds are being distributed, and the seeds are what is put in the ground of Tinat. And so Fitrat comes into the Tinat, and Fitrat is the essence of a human, or a human that understands the holy, and then is turned into a Muslim, or Christian, or Yahudi, or Zoroastrian, or Sabaean, or Mandaean believer. However, at the other side, we have the ethnos or thanatos or tian, or the apes of the Vanara jungle, the Hindu Hellions, the Baha'i baboons, the mishmashes of a little bit of truth, a little bit of falseness, the ones that are basically mixed into nothing, the products of the hypocrisy, or you name it. That is all Tinat or Thanatos, or this, pure this, or pure animal instinct, or we call it the naturally naked eye, or the naturally deleted or yamho, eliminated iPod. And so that is for the ones that are eliminated from the book of life. And then grace of Allah can preserve them in the book of life by giving them fitrat, or the natural negative film. It started Genesis to become in that willpower, not it started or Genesis to become an appeara thing, or the affirm, or the yusabbatot, or the confirmed, or the flash, ifsha, fashed, love lighted film, or the counterpart of probabilistic potentials, because that is what the quvvat is. What we are is nothing but decision making machines. And so we either make decisions according once with or encompasses facing toward the beauty and harmony and justice or holiness, or we still make our decisions, but our compass is not facing toward the beauty. And so willingly or willingly we will produce fruitlessness or regret and sorrow, whether we want it knowingly or unknowingly. And so that is why we call it quvvat, as we read before, or the sustenance, or the Genesis 1:9. It is not the gathering of the fire waters, it is the decision making power of the waters, or the qiva, or the quvvat, or qutaha of Surah 41 verse 10. And whether we go to become a drag force of the Asurahi ecstasy and happiness, or we aligned with the art, and then we become a art connoisseur and holiness or beauty or husna hosanahi, goodness loving human, that under logos lily lensic photo shoot is fixated or registered or accepted or yusabbated or actualized out of the potential probabilities, or actualized in photo album of the fatir, or the fitrat that we already talked, or the fatat, or the fate family, the family that is fate, that is given fate. And so it is the fate that turns a mammal, that there is no difference between our mind and mind of a monkey, or a dolphin, or a dinosaur, or a mosquito, that is all working, operating based on survival. The only difference is when the fitrat comes into thanatos, or as we read in Ezekiel 47 verse 7 and 8, the river that goes into the wilderness of the Tian. These orangutans call it the heaven, but that is in fact the hell, or the Trishula Sheol. Then the river that goes into the Tian might feed and turn, or badalium, or badal, or convert, the very word that is used 6 times, more than 6 times I think, in Genesis 1. Then you become badalium, a precious Christian jewel, or Muslim jewel, or someone that its decision making system is aligned with beauty. An exposure of the eye to the Seresht, or Yas Seresht, or Yasin Seresht, or Isa Christ, T stone, that is again, or the Salam screen of Allah. As we can see in figure 6, this solar growth and subjective sweep and logos reason riser from the 100% uncertainty or the disbelief to the 100% certainty, or my certain I, or the Ainul Yaqeen, or Atman, or the Itminan, or Nafsul Mutma'inna, or Tatma'innul Qulub ala bizikrillah, the certain I, the I that has the Itminan, or the peace, or the Shekinah, his serenity, because of the Creator, whose Mansur al-Hallajahi, I, ego, nafs zakiya, with I am the truth, haq yusi shatah, or shout in English, or the Sufi glosolalia, is going to ask God believfully from Allah, His great name, to get the sun to rise from the west, was what my eye in awe experienced from my 2013 this until my coming this rapture, or the Sufi fana phonexization, through the upstream sail soaring into the heaven. And so now we go into the details of this part, because it is I need to explain it again. And so as we can see in the figure 6, this growth, or this sweep, or this rise from uncertainty toward the certainty, okay, بدل بدلیوم، or تبدیل، فأراد أن يبدلهما ربهما خيرا منه زكاة وأقرب رحما، made a bedelium, and that bedeliumness, or the Allahi alchemy, inshallah, is going to reach to the acme, or to the pinnacle, that in Ramadan months of year 2020, the sun rising from the west will happen through my death and resurrection, and then the khusf and the crush will happen in the city of Harasta, or Herasat, of Isaiah 19 verse 18, or also the ahadith that we have already looked. And so this process, let's get into the process. This process is the process that when you reach to this 100% certainty, then you or I would say whose Mansur al-Hallaji I, or ego, or nafs zakiya, it's the same ego, but it's the ego that is not obliterated into moksha, suction, into nothingness, or the vanity, or the nirvanic nothingness, but on the contrary, it goes to feed toward the feeding of the others with what he or she has received, or what has been so seeded into his tanatosi soil, dead soil. And so whose Mansur al-Hallaji I, ego, nafs zakiya, with I am the Turusi Shatah Shauta, or the Sufi Glossolalia, ecstatically uttereth the Shatah Shauta of the Al-Fatiha, Surah 1, believfully, of Surah 1, this shatahing is going through this process. This I is going to ask believfully from Allah's great name, or the four logisi tetragrammaton throne headline of Surah 1:1 or 27:30, to get the sun to rise up from the west. And so let's get into the details. What is the Mansur, or who is the Mansur al-Hallaj? Mansur al-Hallaj is one of the basically the apostles of Christ, or one of the amazing Sufi disciples, or Darwish disciples of the Christ. And I am here basically giving the attribute of the Mansur al-Hallaj to the ego, or I, or the self of myself, as the as nafs zakiyeh. And again, here you can read about the nafs zakiyeh. We have already read it. And so this nafs, or nafesh, that is mentioned also in Genesis 1, this nafs is a nafs that is from the type of Mansur al-Hallaj. And you can read about the story of this cross carrier that who finally reached to the martyrdom, and it got nailed onto the cross that he was following, and denying himself by following Christ. And so by following Christ and denying himself, he finally reached to the point of saying that I am the truth. But this I, contrary to what everybody is thinking, this I is not the I of the Mansur al-Hallaj. This I is the I, or the nafs, or the nafash of the Najm al-Saqib, or the Najm al-Tariqat, or at-Tariq. And he basically perfected, he is one of the glorious track crossers, or tariqat, or crossers, that went through after the Christ, followed the Christ, denied himself, and then after denying himself, he reached to the I am the truth. And this analhaqi, I am the truth. But again, this I, we must look at it as like a keyhole, that he's been able to completely reduce the resistance of his ego to zero, in order to become all the love about the truth. And then and so that is what we call it as the I am the truth, or I am the haqq, or I am the word. And so basically his fitrati seed that is being sowed into the thanatos tinati soil completely has completely grown and fruitfully yielded to this I am the truth, or anal haqq, or anal haqq, or hakak, or hagios, or hukhta in Avestan language, in Pahlavi, or hukhta, or anal the I am the holy, I am the word, I am the truth, I am the reality. Shatah, and this is basically like a chant, but in an enchanted way. And as we again said, we already looked, the shatah is shatahatul sufiyat, and we have the shatahatul sufiyat also. I don't know, here it is the shatahatul sufiyat that you can read about it. There are many references about the shatah, and shatah in Arabic is in fact an ecstatic utterance of the word in an state that you are doing it unconsciously. And it means shout in English language, or shouting, and this is the Sufi word, Sufi glossolalia, or la'liyaing, or tala'lu'ing, or laliyaing, or saying the word in completely charmed, or kareemed, or takreemed, or generosity of Allah sits upon you, and then in a bacchanalian way you start chanting what you are receiving from the now moment, from the hall, the ecstatic hall of Allah that is yazishing him holy self. And then basically you become a conduit of that tala'allu, or laliyaing, or the word sits in you inside your thanatos, and then in full performance of the fitrati fitr, father, or fatter, or the feed giver, or the feeder, or the creator, that not only creates but also feeds, or fater, or you reach to that glossolalia. And shatah shouta, the shatah shouta, that my nafs zakiyeh, which is the end time version of Mansur al-Hallaj. Let's say if Peter denied Christ 3 times in that night, we can say Mansur al-Hallaj not only denied, not only he never denied, but also because of a lack of that denial, he got amputated and butchered and chopped into the pieces because of sticking to the haq hagios hukhta. And that is what is written on the Christ that we call it again in Shamsul Haq Tabrizi, or as we can hear read in Revelation chapter 19 verse 12. And I saw open, and behold, a white horse, and the one sitting on it that is called faithful, and that is where the Father has faithed him or given full faith to him, and true, and holy, and in righteousness he judges and makes war with humanity and obliterate the gay parading humanity, and he or the false bottle humanity that Buddha Abadun or Baboon Obama has produced. And his eyes are like the flames of the fire, and his head many diadems, the 7 diadems on his crown, or inside his marve, not safa but marve. With the safa is the laser eye or the tongue that comes out of him, or the iron rod that is lightning or the thunderbolting out of that disc, and having a name written on them which no one knows but him holy self, and I know that, and that is Haq Hukhta Hagios, and he is clothed in a robe dipped in blood and called by the name the Word of God, or not only the Lugat of Allah, the Lugat of Lugat, this one is Lugat too, the word of the word, or the word of the capital word, or the Lugat of the Lugat, but also in Avesta we call it Hukhta, or the Hukhta, or Khakak, or the decree, or the statute of Allah. And again, Surah 69 is named after Christ with that very name by which he is going to come after the civilization of jet F-35s that or F-16s, or the space aircraft carriers, and these toys of this orangutan here. Al-Haqqa, that's the reality, that's the name of the Christ, the word, the holiness, the reality, the sacredness. This is a sacred reality completely imbued with the presence of Allah, and that is called Al-Haqqa, Mal-Haqqa, wa ma adraka mal-Haqqa. That's the name of Christ. That basically we read about it. I don't know if I can play it here or not.
الحاقة وما أدراك ما الحاقة ما الحاقة.
And what is the inevitable haqqa? What is that haqqa? We call it hukhta. That is what we call it as the hukhta. And the hukhta is the word. Hukhta is the khakak of 2706. I can bring it here. That's the name of the Christ. Or here is, or we call it Shamsul Haq Tabrizi, or Shamsul Hukhtai Tabrizi. Here, if you go to 2706, 8, and 10, you can see this is the Khakka, or chok, or chok, that comes into English becomes hack, like hacking a tablet or engraving a tablet. That's meaning that a statuette. And we have the hack with the other hay in also in Arabic or Persian, but it is in fact means that it is written. Let's go to 2710, and then we say cut inscribed decree. That is we have it, or the statute, or let's go to 2708, something prescribed, or enactment, or the statute, or the custom, or the appointed word of God, or the fixed pattern, or the ordinance of God, the word of God, or Hukhta, or the Shamsul Haq Tabrizi. That's the name of برای شمس تبریزی ز مشرق که اصل هر ضیایی. And then the thunderbolt or the Ra'dullah rises. And so that is the shatah of the Mansur al-Hallaj. And the Nafs Zakiyah will have the same shatah, inshallah, upon my death in 2020 in Ramadan months, upon my death, with the Anal Haq, that I said the truth, and the truth will inshallah set us free. And that is that the truth that I'm carrying is the body, the staff of the Aaron, or the great name of the Creator, and that is nothing but Hebrew Restaurant 433, Allah, or Yahuwallah, or Yahu, or Yah, He who is holy. And then that's precisely in English HAL or OL, holy, holy Allah. And that's the beauty, and this cognition is what makes a dead thanatos, whether a tarantula or a Talmud writing chimpanzee, or a Kabbalist orangutan, or a Tian digging mole into the Tian Thanatos soil are lacking. That is the recognition of the beauty. And so that ecstatic kali atara of that the Nafs Zakiyah has had was and will be the Shatah Shota that me and my brother we Shatah Shouta in 2015 in July among the Gog and Magog, among the Ya'juj and Ma'juj. And that Shatah Shouta was what? The Surah Al-Fatiha, or the 7 verses that we recited right among these people. And so the first line again is the we can look at it in the form of the good. The 7 verses are the Tetragrammaton, the Q11, and then the Q12 is the first thing that the creation gives to the ecstasy of finding the Creator, or the Creator that has found him or her, and that is hymned, worthy, and hymned or hamad or precious is holy, or is for Allah. And then instantly reciting or acknowledging or resonating that how holy he is, and then saying that he is the owner of Christ, or the day of religion, or the day of Christ. He is the one that sets the day in which Christ sits on his throne to judge the nations, or deen of Allah, sits and the one sitting on this white al-Jafr is the one that is sitting on it, and it's called faithful and true, and in righteousness he judge and obliterate the entire Taoist population of the end time earth, gay priding orangutans, the scientists, relativists, scientists and chists and whatever, all of these beast myths, they're all going to be flushed down the toilet, down the black hole that from which they come. They will join their cripple Stephen Hawking and their Darwin together in the hellhole, hanging from different branches of the Zakum tree, and then they can dangle like the monkeys over there, screaming all together. And so that is the Maliki Yawm ad-Din. And so we say that Allah is the owner of Christ, or the and Yawm ad-Din is the day of Christ, or the, and again this is the first epithet that of the Christ, first mentioned epithet of the Christ. And then me and my brother, the Eldad and Medad, we shout out right out loud in 2015 that Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. That shows that were connected right here in the glossolalia. That happens, we were at the presence, like Allah was looking at us, and Allah was looking at us, and that means that we, or the Christ portal periscope porch, is getting what we are saying, showing it to Allah. Whatever Allah is willing, He gets it done to us. And so over there, in the answer to Ana al-Hayyul Qayyum of again of Surah 3 verse 2, Ana al-Hayyul Qayyum, or Hayyul Hayy, then we said, O Hayyul Qayyum, O Hayyul Hayy, Iyyahu we worship, or Iyyaka, not it is not it is not the third person, you, only you we serve, and only you we follow. Now you want to take us to the get us into the basically this is the compass of the tariqati track. And so from there the beloved takes you into the path of the thorns and thistles, and to test and see how much is really in me and my brother for walking the tariq track of the Isaiah 19:23, and that is the path that again Sayyid Khorasani and Sayyid Yamaniyatullah Khamenei and Sayyid Hasan Nasrallah are going to, inshallah, with their blessed army of the repented Yahudahi people that can come out of Israel and join them, or the American, European soldiers, as well as the Muslims, all together attacking the Israel of Antichrist. They can all follow, and inshallah that path will be open in Isaiah 19 verse 23, and that will happen in Ramadan months 2020, upon the sun rising from the west. And so after that, guide us into the As-Sirat street, and help us, O Allah, to go up, the climb up from the ground zero of the Malakuti membrane all the way to the eastern door, or to the Saqful Marfu, or roof, or the ceiling, or the roof, or the Jasper roof, or the Christ throne, or Hebrew Ubur, and so that we can Hebrew Ubur, or Israel, Isra, Sur, Seir, up to this level. And this is the eighth sky, or the sky of the four nuos, nasal skies. The nasal or the nuos is the Tian or the Thanatos, and help us to go up straight, the double-edged sword, the white side of the sword that comes out of the moonshine, sunshiny emanation of the Christ. that you have given the white side of that sword, not the sharp side, the white side or the white throne side, not the Al-Jafr al-Ahmari side of Imam Mahdi with the mega large sword, the Indrajiti sword that will kill the Indra and all of his orangutans. But the street of the ones that you, oh Allah, that you have given them the favor, and when Allah gives them an amta or no'am of Zechariah 11, that no'am of Allah or the favor of Allah. What is that no'am or the favor? That is that Allah gives them fitrat or the fatara or fater, or Allah feeds them with his love light, or that's the wine or the blood of the Christ. And then not the not the ones that you don't like, or you or the ones that are unthankful, basically, or the treacherous ones. And that again, this is the sorrow, hell, or the hasrat. Again, another name of Christ is the Yawm ad-Din, or the Yawm al-Hasrat, or the day of religion, or the day of belief, or the day of donating the rewards, and also the day of the sorrow, because you either go into the ecstasy and you will get there, or you and me, I will fall into the hasrat and then come down into the place of the unthankful ones that lost the alhamd grip, or precious, how precious and him worthy and valuable is the Creator. And so let us get here. And so the Mansur al-Hallaj Shatah, or the glossolalia of the Sufi Mansur al-Hallaj was Ana al-Haq, or I am the truth, or I am a part now, I have become one of the branches of the vineyard. And everybody said that you are saying that you are God and those kind of things, and then they killed him, but in fact he was just completely transparent, like a glass, mirror glass, without any patina or the rust, getting whatever mercy was coming from Allah and mirroring it all around. And as soon as he did that, then he was silenced. Again, that در مسلخ عشق جز نکو را نکشند، آتشخالهای زرد رو را نکشند. In the path of the lovers, only the good lovers will be killed. They will be honored, and Allah will honor them, like Saint Qasim al-Sulaymani and his Abu Mahdi al-Muhandisa, his brother, that only those are gifted with the crown of martyrdom. Good for them. And so the shatah that me and my brother, again, we use, and again this is the shatah, although it is a small article, but in Sufism it is huge. You can find many articles written about the shatah in Arabic also. There is tremendous amount, but again the shatah is what many of the is the glossolalia, is the Christian glossolalia. It's just precisely what is happening, the shatah shauta. And so the shatah shauta of the two witnesses was the Surah Al-Fatiha, is the Surah Al-Fatiha, and will be the Surah Al-Fatiha. The 7 verses, and that's why I'm working on the form of the good based on those 7 verses. Like the entire form of the Husna, Hosanna, holiness, beauty, justice, separation, or the Badal Bedeliyomi, division, conversion, separation of the profane from the precious, is done by this, because again you don't put the wheat and wheat all together, they cropped each other, the wheat kills the wheat, and so that's why this separation. Christ is the day of Deen, or the Yawm al-Hasrat. The ethnos will go into the Hasrat of not worshipping Allah and Christ, and then the fatter ones, or the ones that have been worshipping or receiving father, or father, or the feeder into their hearts, and they've been fed, yeah, and they partake in the Holy Eucharist, they will be, they have received the human fitrat. And this human fitrat is what doesn't exist in the wilderness of the Kishkinda, or the Devaraka city of the dirty devils and their scientists, bodhisattva comrades. Not only scientists, again, the socialists, communists, you name it. And so that is the Shatah Shauta, or the Al-Fatiha of the two witnesses, and that get me to start making the Tariq Taraki pass, or the sweep, or the Tariq Taraki pass from the uncertainty and disbelief toward, inshallah, certainty and nafsul mutmainna. Is going to ask and so again, under certain certainty, or the ego nafs zakiya with shatah shata of the al-Fatiha, that is similar to an al-haq of Mansur al-Hallaj, or the Gilasul Layliya of Surah al-Fatiha that we did, me and my brother, in 2015. And then with this Shata Shauta is going to ask, inshallah, beauty faithfully from Allah, His great name, to order that the sun to rise from the west, or grant us a healing strike sign before we get obliterated into we reach to the day of sorrow, because many of us are not going to last in our head collision encounter with the Christ rock, or the Deen of Allah, or the Yawm al-Hasrat, or the day of sorrow, and day of also ecstasy. And so this genesis growth, is started in 2013 deaths of mine, and then in 2014 receiving the having the blessing of tabernacling in the Laylatul Qadr, or the willpower with of tabernacling the presence, or the Sakinat of the Christ and Moses. And then my boat was drowned, and then I never got back to the seated Christ transfigured. However, through that night, about 8 months after, I had the blessing of reaching to seeing Allah and being portal periscope porch into the Christ, and seeing the Yasin Yasna Izad Yazdan Rahman Holy Elohi Allah, He inside the Christ. And then after that, in June of 2015, seeing in my baptismal, receiving the warning and the gift of the warning that Emily, or my half, is going to be tossed into the hell on the day of sorrow. And we were screaming, and then we were stretching hand toward each other, and then the hell angels were separating us from each other. That was a gift or a forewarning that I couldn't actually receive at that time because it was too bitter for me to understand or even want to cognize it. But it is the truth, and that is going to happen, and that's the great death that is promised to her, to the Jezebel as well as me. And then in 2015, 1 month after the June, after my baptismal in July, we shouted, me and my Ali Bukhari brother, the Al-Fatiha Surah 1, right in the middle of the Gog&Magog, until my coming death rapture, or the Sufi Fana Phone phoenixization. And again, the Fana Phone or phoenixization is part of you can read about the Fana or the extinction, because the Sufi Fana, or the extinction of or annihilation of the ego, and then reaching to the Inna Lillahi wa Inna Ilayhi Raji'un. And loss of the complete loss of the ego, or becoming phoenixized, or reaching to fanus, which means lantern or the lamp, or like the parable of the butterfly that jumps into the fire and becomes one with the fire. I must add that in the quantum computing of the Cow-Christ Computer book of Allahi Arada Rata Arata Erete Varada Yarada Oher, or intender Villaher, first and final sayer, the worder, the enterer, the importer into actuality. There is absolutely no place for monkey reasoning. As we can see in figure 6, through my sweeper, or فراد أن يبلغ أشدهما و يستخرج كنزهما. And so in my sweeper, or the legacy maturation, or the olive oil drainage from the left hand of the figure of 100% uncertainty toward its right hand, or the 100% certainty, I wisely began to realize that the most detrimental thing to do with Messiah Misbahi scrying sphere, or the trust tablets, is to use my insecure survivalist imagination and my monkey mind and masculine and linear logic and reptilian brainy reasoning, because sometimes the past has as we read in the story of Khizr and Moses, sometimes some of the decisions and the decrees are so unlinear and so into the future that might look completely absurd for the linearly extrapolating imagination of an ethnocy deadly monkey mind. And so reaching to the flexibility of basically making the walk of the faith requires complete neck brokenness, or the ikhlas, khalas, clashness of the neck, or absence of the personal judgment and the mind and then the imagination, and then going with the decrees of the creator. Closer to the logical and lingual talk, or the mantiq al-tayr of Misbahi, birdness, utilization of the major forms of the subjective logic or the linear reasoning, such as deductive reasoning like istidlal al-mantiq al-istintaji, and also inductive reasoning like istidlal istiqra'i, extrapolating, and inductive reasoning, or also deductive reasoning, are completely obsolete and absurd and detrimental and egotistical and expectation producing. Whether you want to go from the macrocosm into the microcosm, or you want to go extrapolate and a microcosm into the macrocosm and reach to a certain reasoning in it. Both of them are dangerous. The reviewed example, as we read in 18 verse 60 to 82, the reviewed example of Moses and Christ Khidra, he do it, shows that why the impatient, again here in all of these verses 67, 68, 69, 77 to 75, 78, 82, in 23 verses, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 verses are all about one thing, and that is about how Moses fails to keep the patience for what Christ Khidr is doing, because they are mind-boggling, and they might look completely absurd, but in fact they are based on the knowledge of potentials and probabilities that are detrimental, and so they must be avoided, and all of those actions are based on that decision making of seeing something that our mind, our linear mind, cannot understand. And that's why it is very hard to work with the trust tablet while we have something that is called ego or my judgment, or and that is precisely what happened. That is how I was defeated in front of the heaviness of my ego, because that was the first stumbling, because of the doubt and the denial that was caused in me once I denied the vision of the Jezebel or Emily. And then I thought that maybe I am kind of being misguided, but I didn't know that it is going to show me the misguided side of myself, and to show the sickness that is in her as well as me, or yuridu an yanghazza faqama, and to show that I am knocked down or she is knocked down. And so I received her sickness by going into her transgender show in a church of God, in house of God, and then receiving that plague. And then once I was mercifully straightened, or yuridu an yanghazza faqama, or my wall was straightened, then I could see the real salamat or aqamat or muqawamat against garbage or rubbish or irrational raps of these homosexuals. And because I have that, I took that disease into myself, or that virus, and then I was cured by the mercy of God. Then in the fact that my body or my immune system had the antivirus against those kind of pathogenic anomaly. And because that was cured inside me, not by myself, but by the order and the command that Allah had given to Christ Khidr, then I could basically give that anti-poison, antivirus, and show that remedy to Emily, and turn inshallah the daughter of the Dajjal, or the daughter of the Antichrist, or one of the 16,000, or in fact many millions of thousands of the women that are sucked with his vacuum, hellish vacuum. I can save her and turn her into a repentant believer. But again, this is a process that shamanically speaking, the only way of the healing the patient is to get the disease of the patient and then cure it inside yourself. Once you can do the Jihad Akbar, which is inside yourself, then you can do the Jihad Asghar, or the little jihad. The great jihad is the jihad against the nafs inside. And once that jihad is done, if we can become successful in the jihad and the fight and war with our ego, then it is easy peasy to go and replicate that jihad, or with others, and so, or help others for overcoming their internal jihad. And so that's basically the way that the shamanic healing can happen. And again, that must be basically had to come into me to see what's the other half of my heart is suffering from, and what kind of falsehood or disease she is trapped into it. And then after that, that I was cured by Allah, then I can basically and that cure still remains in me, or that medicine, and then I can give it to her so that she can let go of the Buddha medicine mantra, or the pig piss urination, or the pig medicine that she's thinking as a medicine, taking it as a medicine mantra in her kirtan crabs, but in fact she's eating sagar or sukra madawai, hellfire, and doesn't know it. And that's actually what has caused her to become a homosexual porno practitioner that has the audacity of coming to the Church of God and bringing that filth and Hindu whoredom into the sacred house of Christian ships. And so the impatient, and so the both of these types of the reasoning, the deductive reasoning as well as the inductive reasoning, are out of the picture. Like when we want to work with Tabut al-Amana, or Lohul Amanat, or the trust tablet, then we cannot work with ordinary states of the reasoning, the linear reasonings, whether deductive or inductive. A utilization of linear logic is preposterous at Havilahi periphery of the blessed burning bush bosom breast, who tells to Moses that, for instance, in 1868, that and how can you have patience or the activated ability, potential, power of what? Kiviti, قوتی، تقویتی، قوایی، hope and faith, and strengths, for Buddha to be formed out and brought about of an unknown or evil situation. Again, as we can see, it is completely up to the decision of God that He can bring out of evil situations healthy ones, and out of the healthy ones evil situations. It's completely up to Allah. But again, the idea is that for instance, one of the things, this process is katiroing or taktiring, and katiroing or taktiring is the way of the purification of the Hebrews, or the alchemization, or the badal bedeliumization of the Hebrews. That for instance, if we go to John 2, we can see that we have the 6 water pots of a stone, and then these 6 water pots of a stone are full to the brim with water, but this is the fire, and this is the salt water, and then this salt water is nothing but a regret. And then they are filled to the brim with rubbish, and with the Buddha medicine mantra, or those kind of sukramodavai rubbish, garbage, and then or mistakes, you name it. There are millions of different ways of the sin water or salt water. And then after that, the purification comes in, and then the katarismos, or taqtir, or qatrei, or taqtir, or qatara comes. And then that again, that is the qatara that we already read about it in verse 96 of Surah Qatara. Qatara, that's the qatiro, or the qatara. It's not molten copper, it's the qatara, or the taqtir, or the distillation. It is a but it is in fact this is the prayers of the saints, as we read in Revelation 5:8, or the smoke that is being poured from the vials of the 24 elders. And that qatara is how this sin water can turn into, purifies and becomes wine. And so once it turns into wine, then it is inverse. We see that if the more sin you have, once you can reach, or Allah wants you reach to that quwwa, taqwiyat, kiviti, hope, power, in again John chapter 2 verse here 2:9, and then here it is 2:6 and 2:7. The more sin someone has, and then they have the courage, or they are given the strength and the hope and the weight for converting all of that sin, or all of that vacuum and vanity, to goodness, then the blessing for them will be much higher, because the wine will be much more than the average person that has not seen a lot. And so once the wine is converted, or badal bedelium, the more sin you have, and then you convert, the more wine you will get at the end. And so sometimes, although the sin is bad, but again, it is Allah that can bring good out of the bad, or let the goodness to evaporate, or ruins, or demolishes, or not by himself, but by the means of the mistakes that we make, the good to kind of dries out. And again, that's why we read here that I will later on talk. But again, as for the Jezebel or the Emily in the Theatre Church, in the Anglican Church, the lesbian priest that is actually now kind of from the summer of 2019, she's kicked out because of the sensitivity that I have brought into the abomination that she's causing there. Inshallah, that will be a good sign. And so, as many that the ones that don't hold to these teachings, or they called the deep things of the Satan, I'm not laying any further burden. But now imagine someone knows the deep things of the Satan, that I've already talked about it, about the Surah 2 verse 102, how the Harut and Marut, or Tat and Mat, or the Ganesha is pumping the Nephilims with rubbish knowledge of working with the dark matter, dark energy. Now imagine that someone that has that knowledge let go of the knowledge of evil and comes into the knowledge of good. And one good healthy example of it is Queen Sita, or Queen Sheba, that when she comes into the Ravanahi palace of Solomon, then she right there she says that I have wronged against myself, and here قال رب إني ظلمت نفسي
قالت ربي إني
ظلمت
ظلمت
نفسي.
نفسي.
And so now imagine that you are the queen of, and you are in the Satyaloka level, okay, like you have all the devil lakes, or the lokas, under your commandment, the fifth garden, and then, or the fifth loka. And then if someone reaches to that level of the repentance, to say that قال رب إني ظلمت نفسي, that is so holy. That is like turning huge amount of the field pig urination, or the swine scum, into a Swani Salam Queen Lady. And that is the way of the purification of the Yahudahis. Inshallah, that will be the case for whoever Allah wills. Again, not both of them, they are an amazing couple, Solomon and his Queen Sita, because we can see that Solomon is, as for the Solomona, he's an excellent servant. Why? Because he's a one repeatedly turning back to Allah. Ni'mul abad innahu awwab. He is constantly saying astaghfirullah and then corrects it. And so such a ni'mal awwab, that he is one of the best, repeatedly turning to Allah for the mistakes that he is making, so that Allah can correct or reduces the hazards of and the results of his mistakes. Innahu awwab. And so for the king of the Awwabun, or for the Solomon king of the repentful souls, of course, Inni zalamtu nafsi, Queen Sita or Sheba, she's the best, because Sheba means Sabi, or the queen of the slaves of the sin, or slaves of the urinated sin water. And when she gets to that level, and he is one of those, like a king of repentful ones, and queen of the repentful ones, that knows all the deep things of the Satan, and of the, or the Rama, Sita knows all the filthy things of the Satan, and then in spite of that she says, oh Allah, I made a mistake, wa aslamtu, I salam, or I become healthy, or I converted, or I submitted, or taslim, or I became neck broken, I'm checkmated, I'm surrendered with my husband, and then two up for Allah. And then this is amazing, like they are a couple that with huge amount of converted wine in them, or badal bedelium wine in them, and that is a holy level. Again, that is the legendary level of the holiness that happens there. And so inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning, just they are preposterous. And again, in that case, we see that how can you have patience? This is what Christ Khidr is saying to Moses, the activated ability potential of the hope and wait for Gouda to be formed or brought out about of an unknown evil situation. How can you wait for wine to be katara taqtir or katirod out of sin salt? Yurid an yangaza agama. I was knocked down. I was about to become an Ouroboros, that is a queer Ouroboros, that is biting his genitalia, or falling into hofrata min an-nar. And then Allah helped me to save me to become agama, or straightened, by means of the help of my brother Ali Bukhari. And so I didn't become a homosexual or sodomite damaged one. And then also I realized that that I am betraying to the entire Holy Spirit by going to a gay club with Bibles inside it, because Ephesians 5:11, I'm not doing Amr Ma'ruf and Nahi as Munkar. I'm not doing enjoining good and forbidding evil, or I'm not reproving the fruitless works of the darkness. And so if you don't, then you are one of them. You have a reprobate mind too. And so that is precisely the case. And so all of these things came after. That's how I know about those deep teachings, and then I can work work that dangerous situation into an opportunity. For what the already happened time or the future past ground that you don't encompass in knowledge. As Isahi vortex ritra, the absolute word of qawwa or qawwat or kiviti or tiqwa, again Hebrew 86:15, tiqwa or kalamat taqwa, that's the word of the taqwa or taqwiyat or the strength that Allah sends upon the hearts of the believers. What he sends upon the hearts of the believers is taqwa. Be still and know that I am God and my hand is upon you, or my taqwa or tiqwa, that's another name of Christ, is kalamat taqwa, or the taqwiyat, or the serenity and tranquility and the hope and the peace and the power comes into the heart of the believer. And again, and how can you have patience for what you don't encompass in knowledge? And so at Havilahi periphery or presence or closeness to the Messiah, Misbahi is crying is fear, or the reactor core of the dark room, the only form of the subjective logic. And so in the subjective logic that we are working here, there are again three types of the subjective logic that we have, getting from disbelief to uncertainty and then to belief, or basically sweeping or tracking from disbelief to belief. And that subjective logic, the only form of subjective logic that is practical and possible, is abductive reasoning. And so abductive reasoning is neither inductive or deductive. In the abductive reasoning, that helps the abductee Sufi apostle that your reasoning must be surrendered, and so the reasoning of a surrendered lover is completely abducted with whatever the beloved does, and whatever he does, that's the best. And if he sees fit to have a queen for me, so that I can become a curer and then she can become a cured queen, by he getting me to become cured, and so now I have the first aid Christ kit to give it to her so that she can turn her LGBT leprosy into sanity or healthiness, or you name it, or the swine sickness of the Sukramodavai Buddha medicine mantra that she has been eating, the pig urination or the pig medicine poison that she's been eating and drinking, and getting her to puke and then turn into a salam swan instead of a swine. That can only happen through abductive reasoning. That helps the abductee Sufi apostates that are abducted by the Christ mothership, that is gracefully abducted from empty ego, or the hamiyat, or the hameat, that we read in 48:26, or the hamiyat, or the hamahit, the hollow head, that to work with the messianic mothership. We can see in all of the three answers of all of the three impatiently objecting questions of Moses, that is asking from messianic misbah, in their answer, in all three answers, is giving and using the binahi clarification, explanation, or interpretation, or answer, or the exegesis, or the awliya awwal tawal awla be ta'wil, and that's the meaning of also one of the ta'wil that we have. That's the ta'wil the reasonings that you have. They are coming from the same root, ula and ta'wil. Ta'wil means again interpretation or the answer or the reason or why or the source, the words that can be spitted out of the singularity of the reason, or the misbahi, Christ misbahi lamp. And so ulai means awwaliye, or the primary, or the prior, or the first grade. And so awwal, in Daniel 8:2, that also we read, or the awwal, or the forebear, or the earlier, or the former, the first, the previous, okay, the cardinal, the chief, the key, the main, the most important, or the principal, okay, all of these, and now we have it also as the ta'wil, ذلك تعویل ما لم تستطع علیه صبرا. Okay, and so the ta'wil is means interpretation, or setting the priorities, or saying that that was the primary, and so the secondary, or that was the cause, and the effect was this, and so because this effect was not appropriate, or this this result was not desirable, then we decided to change the awla, or the awwaliya, or the primary boundary conditions, in a way that they can produce a wine down the line of the Allahi alchemization. Okay, and so that's where the 6 water pots of me, Anali, of Anahita, Ali, Neil, Marina, and Emily can turn into wine pots that are full of wine. Although we have committed porno, we have received the mark of the beast in their forehead, LSD, mushroom, you name it, on our hands. All of us have been participating in worshipping Dajjal as the god, this gay pervert president of the Hindu orangutans, and Optimus primacy of these CIA maggots, and all of those things. They can be turned, and so they can be turned into an opportunity of having 6 Muslims or Christians or Taslims, or the healthily surrendered ones at the end. And so the only one that can give the ta'wil of these visions is the one that is at the most high awla first, and that's another name of the qadim, or qidma, or the east, or the awwaliye, or the ancient, or the primary. And then the primary, because we say, what's the reason for this? What's the reason for this? In other words, we say, what's the ulai for this? Or what's the ta'wil for this? Here, let me bring the ta'wil so that you can see that the river of the ulai, there is a reason for the river of the ulai, that is called river of ulai. Let's start from maybe from 76, and then we go forward. here. قال هذا فراغ, and then again the impatiently, although Moses is right, and then there is I have to have a payment, and inshallah very soon I will pay the promise and the pledge and the ajran. But قال هذا فراغ بيني, but Moses is just saying that, man, like, you're doing so much favor to this retard boy, and so
عليه
and so after doing that, Christ says, all right, enough, you can now go back. I know that it is mind-boggling, but before going, let me tell you the reason for this. The reason is, I will inform you about the interpretation is one reason, but olai is
بتأويل
ta'wil or awwal or awwali or awwaliyat, and then we have the same awwaliyat here, and then the reasonings are all coming, and zalika
تأويل
ta'wil, or forget about the t at the beginning, it is awwil, or the awwil, or ulai, uvlai, awwal, and awwaliya. And avvaliya means the earliest, the earlier, and then the earlier set the stage, the reason set, or the cause set the stage for the effect. And so the only subjective reasoning that can be used is the abductive reasoning, because in the abductive reasoning, Allah does whatever He is willing, and gets the Christ to actualize it, and then we can see the awlai, or the awwaliya, or ta'wil of that reason, of that effect, or that decision that is performed or carried out, and so or the high previous prior start, or the incipience, or the onset, that's the meaning of awwaliya, or the former, or the earlier first ta'wil, is causal in causal cascade course, cause and effect line, or the logical line, or the reasoning run, or the chain series of cause and effects. And that is, again, that's the meaning of the ta'wil, or the ulai. And who is giving the ta'wil and ta'wil? Both cases, the khidr, or the Christ, or the spring of the reasoning, the spring of sanity and the order, is giving to the Moses that I did this because of this, I did that because of that, and in all of these cases, it says that I did this and that. Why? Because of the mercy of Allah. Here he says that here, and I did not do it upon my amar, or on my accord. I did it because of the mercy of Allah, and Allah ordered me, so I did it. The potter get me to do this and that, and I did that. But again, Christ can do also in the autopilot, like here we see that Allah is saying that, oh, you keep the good wine for the very end, nice thing you made. Again, the alchemy, this is the alchemy of the alchemy in the way of the Hebrews, okay? That's the purification, or the katiro taqatir in the way of us, the Israelites. Not the Zionist Israelites that are butchering their neighbors and then calling them themselves as the people of the law. No, like the other ones. The ones that are attacking to that homosexual Israel. Coronavirus designing, communist making, nuke making master race of the Shakyamuni psychopaths and the Samadhi scumbags of the Buddha Abadan, this fartful pharaoh president, whatever, gas pump. And so that's the meaning of the ulai, or the first cause, the earlier cause, the reason, the origin, the source, the basis, the imperative, the necessity, the inducement of the three vision words, or the three reality hacks. These are all the reality hacks. Like if it wasn't for the mercy and merciful intervention of Allah, or the alterations of the time space, this vanity hole, then من کجا و خدا کجا، من عرف نفس فقط عرف ربه، where I was and where was Allah. I mean, like, I was nothing but a Thanatos-ity, nothing with a bunch of PhD rubbish degrees and thinking about the formulas and then all working with mind and sex, and that's it. But then the change comes, and then the good comes. The form of the good, the husna hosana, and that's the husn of Allah. And again, what is the husn of Allah? The husn of Allah is, I love this verse because it is very healthy every once in a while to refresh ourselves. Myself, فَأَصَابَ مَنْ حَسَنَةَ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. And so whatever comes to you of good, or husna hosanat, hasanat, is from Allah. But whatever retard evil comes from you, it is from yourself. And that is the case always. Always. And so or the three Kian Yakunahing changes of the Malakuti plane. These are the reality hacks. Not in a way that these orangutans go and get to their Bindu point of their Sri Yantra and then they make the reality. This is a reality hack of a living God, not a corpse chimpanzee that has annihilated himself and the entire existence and me and everything else in order to be able to hack a marriage or a relationship between two persons. Say, well, this is not according to my Dharma law, or it might jeopardize my Dharma law, and so let's go and or perturb my sleep in the ignorance, and so let's go and do this and that, whatever. Survival of the Dharma law is the end that justifies any means for these orangutans, whether exploding a marriage, butchering a nation, making 9/11 and going after 6 countries to overthrow their governments, bring misery and suffering and all of those things. They are all justified for these Shakyamuni Baha'i scumbags that have a palace and temple on top of the Mount Haifa for the remembrance of the 850 shamans of Baal and Jezebel that were butchered, amazingly killed by or disinfected by the command of Elias, Yasin Yasna Izad Yazdan Rahman, or Elijah, but it is not Jah. Anyway, to be preconditioned, okay, that is how the Malakuti is preconditioned, or the conditional probability is being affected or abducted, okay. This is where the abductive reasoning is coming. Or the preconditioning, the earlier conditions or the boundary conditions are hacked in a way that we can get wine out of salt, sinful, salty water, the sour amino acid water, and that is again as for the conditional probability, you can read here about the conditional probability, but it is basically working with the denominator or basically with the precondition B, probability of B, and then getting the P given the B, or the affected or the abducted by and because of the predestined future past event actualities that had to be gracefully erased or preserved so that desirable results can be yielded out of the abductive reasoning. For instance, I could become a knockdown, gay filth, a curved queer crap, as we're in 77, whose LGBT lack of straight aqama upwardness or quma qamanis, come upness. That's how the in Daniel 8 we read that the second horn came up last and it became longer. That's how it became longer, aqama. And then you become, one of the names of muqawamat or the resistance is aqama, that you come up out of the zeroness. You become resistant to garbage. You didn't become resistant to irrational raps of these aphrodisiac eating sex slaves or the sabis of the Shiba or the Shabis of the Shibai or the Sitakoini, slaves of the sin. And so the only way that someone can criticize that is that they must first be purified from that glitch, so that we can say, well, this is because if you have it or if I have it, then if I'm a LGBT loser, then I cannot criticize it or reprove it, as read in Ephesians 5:11, whose LGBT lack of a straight come-upness could have overburdened and killed and ashamed my two Muslim parents. Okay, I could have become a retard loser who was writing for a gay magazine of Gog&Magog. Okay, something like that. Instead of me writing these things that I'm reciting it now. Instead of the current straight upness pipe pillar, as we're in Ezekiel 1990, Zechariah, Revelation, or also even the Daniel 8, the horn that is raised up, who is currently raqaq, or the empty extract, istakhraja, or the raqiq, raqaqing, olive oil from Isa Messiah, he love lamp, for writing this witness treasure. It is this abductive reasoning of the logic logos balaghi love lamp of Allahi Lugat, who foreshortens, for instance, as we read in Matthew 24:22, or lengthens, preserves, or again eradicates. It depends. All sort of the entire differential equation is in hand of Allah. Wallahu balaghu amrihi wa ja'ala lahu likulli shay'in qadra. And so Allah is balagh amri, the boundary, the variables that Allah has to play with them to get the differential equation to yield desirable results and simulation are innumerable. He is the again. Our fight is not our fight with the dark forces. It is the fight. It is the chess game that Allah is playing with these orangutans, IQ level 144 geniuses of the hellhole, who foreshortens or lengthens the malakuti fabric plane of the time and space, or ننقصها من أطرافها, or knockdowns or ناقصes from the boundaries, or brings the word lines and the boundary conditions are imposed to the plane of experience, malakuti plane. That's why we say تو را حاجت به دوران و زمان کو، زمان محتاج و مسکین تو باشد. Here it says زمان محتاج و مسکین تو باشد، تو را حاجت به دوران و زمان کو. یا yes, so saying that the time maker, Ahura Mazdai, owner of the time maker, with your Christ handy hand, the time needs you. You don't need time. You can stretch it or foreshorten it. You can do whatever. The time and space is just nothing but موم کف دست, like a medium, a malleable medium for you that you can easily give any kind of retrovertive form to it, whatever you want to do. In Islam, or at Laylatul Qadrahi, night of the willpower, as dense of 1,000 months, that is equal to 83 years, but it is in fact 4 hours of sitting on Maqam Mahmud, or being at the presence of the Maqam Mahmud, or Maqam Sulaiman, and seeing the Sulaiman behind the Fanus Fana, fire of the phoenixes, or the predestining the potential and free wills, or the determination of the scope, extent, aperture, diameter, frame. That's the meaning of the Qadar, or the Laylatul Qadar, Keter, Qadr. These are Ketri, Qatar, Qutr. All of these are coming from the same root with different kind of spellings and implications, but they are all put into the PIA root category of the aperture, the vastness, the scope, the extent of open-heartedness. And then the willpower, or taqwa, kiwi, quvvat, taqwiyat, your hope, waiting. All of these, and these are the nights that nights of the transfiguration, and then all the prophets or the masters, like Master Rumi, they all had it. That Muhammadahi pot meets the metamorphosed moon, or the cow-cross clock crown, or the Messiah, or the word of the quvvat, kiviti, tiqwa, or the hope and wait. The Muslims pray for elongation of their life. That's why that in this night the Muslims pray for the elongation of their lives and forgiveness of their sins, and for the year that is to come and the year that was past, Okay, so that's why basically there's a reason that they are saying that, like, there is a ulai or ta'wili reason that we say that in that night the prayers will be heard, or in that night the destiny will be set for the year to come, and the sins can be forgiven, and so special prayers and a special attention to the prayers is given. Similarly, the coming anticlining qadama or oikitomos li footstepping shafaq or safak or safak or a speck, or like a spectacular, or all of those basically roots, PIA roots in English language, like a speck or shafaq or safaq, spectacularly east dawn advent شرق شریک شرقی یعنی اینگه قرآن کرایاهینگ of the super heavy شکل ثقیل لی بیگ بنگ بقراهینگ cow Christ cloud or the scatani solar singularity upon the Malakuti flat film or the dark hole inside which there is this big banging white hole or the Felucai fabric of the particles will grace gravitationally and mercy massfully and wholly heavily. These are the values that can work on this of the living God, and verse weightily wrap, twist, tie, bend, buckle, distort, conglobate the Felucai film or the Sama ad-Dunya as much as 1,000 years, like one time again. That's when we say that and he comes and sits on his throne and judges to starts the judging, and on his throne, on his white horse, sitting on the one, and then he judges and makes war. That sitting or Allah sends the kalamat taqwa, and then this kalamat taqwa, kiviti taqwiyat quvvat, sits at the center of the malakut, and then wraps, conglobulates it all around. The heart pressure comes, the saddle shape completely wraps around it, and then easily Allah does whatever he wants to. Kun fayakons, or basically kians the kun, or the lower kon becomes iconed or imaged or hacked or engraved with whatever Allah wants, or the plain page is becoming written according to what is varadat or yaradat or aradat or the arada rata'at. And again, that is as heavy as 1,000 years, like 1,000 years of letting the word to clock, the time and space to tick tock, is equal to maybe 4 hours of the Christ presence and the katizoing or sitting and lecturing with grace gravity, with mercy mass, with holy heaviness, and with worse weightiness, and that's the amount of the we can see this worse weightiness that can produce enough Kianing changes as much as 1,000 years in 4 ordinary hours. Again, that's where the time is receives a different rate or bits at the presence of the holy heaviness. In order to understand the godly gravity and Katar Katiro Kadri willpower scopa and Eskatani event horizon extend Ishraqat al-Arz benur Rabbaha wa waza al-Kitab, and on that day that Christ sits on his throne, and then solar lunar eclipses, or the day of Christ, when Christ is waza'a or yaza al kitab, or Christ is placed at his sit at his throne, and then Allah is behind him or holding him up, and then the nur of Allah Ishraq or Sharq or Shariq or East Dawn advance into the earth, and that was the meaning of the Ishraqat al-Arz benur Rabbah wa waza al-Kitab. This is the book of life that is placed. Okay, this is not the book of deeds. Book of Deeds is a very small memory. The Book of Life is a living processing unit. The Book of Deeds is just a part of a registry of the records. It is the Book of Life that by through whom, in whom, for whom Allah is running the Judgment Day simulation, Judgment Day program, or the Holy Heaviness, or the Manamonic Mercy Mass, or the Deidordiski Density, or the Vorsi Veta of the coming Eskatani solar singularity, who will wrap tied to Vismatviyatum Beyamine, the Felukai fabric of the time space, or the Harmonahiyomani hologram, or the Zuni Zamani, Zemuni Zamani, Zaman Zamini, or the earthly mortal moment, or the Adamei dry ground, or the garden surface of the costive constipation, or the Yebusite, or the Yabasi sour sullenness, or the abyssness, or the sin, salt sin, or the moroseness, or the dismal downcastness. In order to understand this, let my knowledgeable and abductee eye, and that's the eye that is abducted and reaches from uncertainty to certainty, remind you that the Laylatul Qadr Katirahi, night of the transfigurations, or the student sittings under the Christ class cup, have a mercy mass, a magnitude and legacy luminosity level of 1/12 or 8.33%, or the 1,000 months of that coming 1,000 years of the last day Durriya Disk. Yes, and so 1,000 years again will be not really 1,000 years, but it will be about 12 times longer than 3 hours or 2 hours. About at the and we call it last day, and then it reaches to, at the end of the 1,000 years, it reaches to the hour, and then time space is cut and finished. And again, this Asura 97 is a good way of is a good unit and the scale that shows us the scope and the magnitude of the what is about to come. And let's see what we have for the these are the ones that are alienated from.
Well, I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
And so now imagine that an orangutan inside the UN of the Sodomite Caesarta, that is made by the fear that this Sodomite Caesarta scumbag has made after the World War, is talking about an alien race. And these are the Rama reptiles that are alienated from the Ravanahi palace, or the Christ Mahishasurahi Messiahi palace. And so that's why these are the this Brahmini Hamunai ones are the alienated from the alien starship of the 7 stars, or they are alienated from the angelic one, or the Deva Devis, and the ground that is basically contaminated with the Deva Devi devilish dirt. Is of the end time, it is completely alienated from the mothership of the angels, or the Asurahi, Surasati, Surasururi, happiness and salamati and amniyat, and amen immunity, or ta'wil and awwal, or awlawiyat, or reasoning, or hujjat, or logat, or logic, or hugging, necessitation, or the requirement, necessity, or قوت تقویت, kiviti, omid, hope, you name it, or shark shrieking, cry, and word, or a spectacular speech, or Sophia, or Sfik, or Shafa. All of it are together lumped into 1,000 years, or 12 times heavier than basically the transfiguration luminosity of the Keterahi night. That's the power of the by which the hour is going to come, and after the 1,000 years. And again, that is where the logos luminosity, that ishraqat, or shark shrieks, or the loudness of the shark shriek, the loudness of the voice of the phone, or the fanusi phone, or the words, the utterance of the word into the black hole, that will white big bangs inside the black big bang, inside silence. There's no bang there. It is all om. Another one were the hate hole of the man-made LGBT love and sodomite silence and indifference. Will be shark shriek illuminated with 12 times higher pitch or loudness, or the love light loudness or luminosity by Christ Ko Kabaduri. Again, another part of the Durriyan. That is a Durriya dar گوشه سرمست خفتم فارغم از خیر و شر MashaAllah. Yes, so that is the Durriya Dar, or that is the Christ Durri Dar, or Dur, or the pearl disc, or the star of the east, or the Christ Kokab of Surah 24 verse 35. That's the 7-star ship of the aliens, and Imam Mahdi and all the angels that are coming, and they are called aliens by these orangutans that kill saints of the Christ, like Qasim Soleimani, and then say, well, we killed the terrorists, don't worry, you keep paying tax to the Antichrist. And think that the World Health Organization of the UN of the Antichrist, that has already made problem reaction solution, that has already made these kind of diseases, or the Ebolas, or AIDS and whatever, in order to get you to think that they care about your health. And this is how the sheep of the animal farm are being steered by the pigs, so that you can pay and think that the Buddhist cares about you. But again, you are nothing but a decision-making unit that if you're outside of the Christ Kabe Kyokiboto's box, and then you're thinking whether you want it or not, you are basically thinking and working and living for the hellfire, or you're producing regret, unless you are purchased by the precious rain or breeze of Lamb of God. To put it together, another word way, on Judgment Day, door disc dawn, when were heavy cow cross clock, a standing singularity, or sa'atul qa'imat, or qum qam calmed up, sa'at, or hour, or the Nazarati now moment of the white hall, and this is the hall or the hole in again, with havila hall around the hole, okay, with the hole or hall around this, howl around hall, or hall around hole, the periphery waves, or the rim ripples, or the edge undulations, or the brink outskirts that are propagated from that pulsing pupil, or Isahi epicenter, or the holy Allahi white hole moment, who has solar lunar eclipse in Escatoni front of holy Allahi now whole white hole of the day, Genesis 1:16, the whole hole, or the throne, or the pupil of the heaven, and that is how the Christ can become the pupil whole throne, white throne of the dark room. And where the heavy cow cross standing singularity aura would put whose Kian kun fayakun now hing footstep standing upon the Felukai film of the Hamuna Humanity time space Makon Kon, then there it will become Wal Arzu Jami'an Qabzatahu, or the entire earth is conglobulated and wrapped around the right hand of Allah, or by grip of Allah, and that is Christ, or the around the happy heaviness, or the morning mass, فالمغيرات صبحا, of the misbah, of the central singularity sa'at aura, and that's the central tree of knowledge of good that comes, and then everything buckles or conglobulates around it, or the entire now let's go into the details. Entire cone, or the lower cone of the BTCTN model, becomes iconed or becomes imaged by the heaven, or the Kian, or where it has a shape, or it is positively pressurized and has a form because of the presence and Shekinah dualness of Holy Allahi singularity white hole. Inside this mini white hole, the lowercase white hole, the moon, then a lower cone can become exactly what the icon is willing, and again that is what we call it as the kun fayakun. That is also a nice famous song. It's the one that is giving rang or medad or ink or color. Here it is. This is from kun to from kun to yakun, or from higher kun that orders the lower kun to become the desired icon, whatever it is. That is called kun fayakuning. Or also we have this, I think this is the other the other ways of singing the kun fayakun. He commands it, and it is as he wants. He says that Allah arada rata'a, or the rata of Allah, or the will of the creator, gets it to become, and then it says sam'an wa ta'ata, it tosses, or the says that amanat, or basically he commands it, and then it is, or it becomes, or icons, or the kun rids the kian, and then it becomes icon, or the highly pressurized icon gets this formless cone to get the cone. And so from here again, from here, if we look to the field, from the force to the field, or in fact if we bring the field to the as element number 64, the diagonal of the matrix with all of the 64 elements are all arrayed in this change from kun to yakun, and so the entire spectrum of the changes, of the itching changes, are conglomerated around qabz of Allah, and so the void, or the earth, will be conglomerated entirely by the hand of Allah. Here I will read that. Wal arzu jami'an qabzatahu. Who is the grip of God? Yawm al-Qiyamah. And because he is the Yawm al-Qiyamah, and who is the Yawm al-Qiyamah? That is the Christ, or the qabz of Allah, or the godly grip. And also the heavens will be folded in his right hand. And who is the right hand of Allah? Both of them. The heaven is hanging from the protosi up top, and that protosi up top, or the event horizon around Allahi white hole, is the Christ. And also the earth is in qabz of Allah, or in hanging from a skatani place, from which the ta'wil, or ulai, or awwaliyat is coming, or the reasons are coming, and the entire cause and effect from the kian kun fayakun to from is happening. The entire chain of the cause and effects are happening in there. This all again congruent around this. The event horizon, or the dawning diameter of this kun fayakuning singularity, or the white hole, or the Christ clock, or the baqaraing, not the first 6 ones, and not the 7th one, but the 8th one, or the steam engine, or the panting now nostril of Surah 100 verse 1, that with his full horsepower, qadar qudrati quwwati taqwa, kalamat taqwa quwwati zi quwwatin inda zal arsh. Also we have it as the quwwat in let me bring it, that we will look at it in another one also. I think it is 19 or 20. after 19. إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة. It is the كلمة تقوى. قوة, or he's full of hope and wanting and will love, and that's why he is makined or secured to Yasin Yasna Izad Yazdan Rahman. He is the boundary horizon of Allah's white hole, and that is Christ. At the protosia up top is named nimbus or rainbowed, close and with, and the logos was with God, close to the Allahi throne, and so that's why he is called Quwwat. It's the Christ. And then this Quwwat is called as Ruhul Amin. Amen, Ruhul Amen, and he is being ethos or obeyed or muta or eta'at, muta'ated or eta'ated by who? By all the angels of the 7 heavens, as well as the angels of the mid-air or the 8th heaven. Or with the qudrat or the quwwat of the 24 fireful elder auras, the full 24 live charcoal chambers will be and become in another song, the same song in another style. Here, let's take a look. Yes. This is the heavy Mahishasura that sits and with Asur and Surasat and with the happiness conglomerates the sadness around his happiness, or around the only time that exists, and that is the ecstasy of having Holy Allah, Allah. ایزد یزدان رحمان پشو یشای آتش عشقی. And no matter how much white phosphor bombs they drop at us, we don't lose that Asurahi Surah Satan rejoicefulness of the Holy Spirit, of having Holy Amen Spirit, Ruach HaAmen, and Holy Allah. Ali. This Ali is the root word of the theos or tial or ta'al or tal comes to English, that the al of the tal and the t is the prefix sarf of the verb. It's part of the verb, but not the root part. It is the Ali or Allah or Allah or Tal, and that is for the Theos or Theol or Al of the Theos, the Most High God. The utmost high white hole or the throne of Allah, the Jasper stone, one of the 99 names. And that is from where the kun fayakun comes down. And that is how the kun fayakun reaches down to the lower con. And so this the event horizon or the dawning diameter of this kun fayakun in Christ clock, that with his full horsepower of 24 elder hours or full aidan safarat kiramon bararating, will become the exhale overflow vafara tanura, or the oven that is overflowing, or tifarating, or the vaporing, or the vaporing, or inhaling, is 12 times hot, holier, love, louder, warm, wombly, wider than his average opening, Fadham Mubin, for teaching purposes of the Christ class cup. We can see in the nutritious combo of 24, 12, 70, 80 and 38, 36 that for these Laylatul Qadr Rahi nights of the clock synchronization, or the Badal Bedeliyomi natural selection, this is the real natural selection, and the only natural selection that can ittaqaza or the akhaza or the selects from the packs of emptiness a little bit something and then turn it into a Muslim living being, that is aqama or qiyamated or qamad, or Christian that is has turned into a one that is pointing toward the Ali or Allah or Tal or Theo, or the angel alien abduction, or the teaching that is happening again in all of these verses, or the allamai, or the water winding, or the wobbling, or watering, or the Tabrizi Blubris Ruach Rakahing, or the moon sighting, the metamorphosed Messiah, or the sitting in the Christ class cup, or beholding the trust tablet transfiguration into buy of apostolic pots Allah has given to the Salamonah in this combo that we are reading, Allah has given to Solomon one of the 12 now nostrils for these teachings. All the prophets that are sitting and receiving the teachings, Allah has given to Solomon one of these at the back of his Christ Mahisha Surah. He basically misbah, or the scrying bulb that Solomon has phoenixized into him, one of the 12 now nostrils, or the moon gates, or the Melchizedeki Naphtalic sniffers, or the Melchizedek's makhraj sidqan that we have, and also madkhal sidqan, sniffers, or the makhraj sidqan, or the naphtalic sniffers, or the snifflers, or the amen spirits, ruhul amins, passports, so that Solomon at back and beyond and inside the white hole, the Christ white hole of the dark room, or the white hole, which means now, or hall, or the Caucasus clock singularity, or singularity string, or the Misbahi moment, would cause this to become what him Sultan self has villa according to Allah aradarata, according to what Allah has willed. The infused Solomon with Christ, or the Sufi Fanafanust, has villa according to it. And so and this is how all the apostles are receiving their teachings. And not only the apostles, which are not the light, but they are receiving the light and are pointing toward the light. In other words, the lower cone, in the nights that the Christ is giving the teaching, or the Laylatul Qadri, Katiroi Qadri, Qudrati nights, Surah 97, are receiving these big bangs. But again, the 6 big bangs that are happening from the white hole, or the Christ now moment of hole, are 12 times louder than these ones, or they are 12 times more luminous than the ones that prophets are receiving, or the Sufi apostles or the masters are receiving. And so also not only the first 6 ones, and then the 7th one, but also the 8th one that is coming at the end of the 1,000 years, or at the end of the last 24 hours, that is called the hour, with the Big Bang in that hour is 12 times louder than what the apostles have been experiencing, or 12 times more luminous. And so beyond, while Solomon is beyond and back and inside this white hole, would cause this 2 modes to become what him solar self has villa, according to Allah villa. And so the first mode is فَسَخَّرْنَا لَهُ الرِّيحَ تَجْرِي بِأَمْرِهِ رُخَاءُ حَيْثُ أَصَابَ. Okay, and so again this is a condensed version for me to get you to understand 3 very complicated verses all together. And so فَسَخَّرْنَا لَهُ الرِّيحَ, and so we subjugated the rih, or ruh, or Holy Spirit, as Ruh al-Amin, and also Amen Spirit, and not Ruh HaKodesh, but Ruh HaAmen, both, for let's say Solomon, King Solomon, to tajri, to blow and to breathe by the amr of the Solomon, and by the command of the Solomon, and rukhaing, or facing, or moon facing toward wherever he wants, to our haysa asaba, wherever he wants to do what? Asaba or saba or sabauts, or the smashes, or the morning big bangs, or to faces, or to infects, hacks. And so it is called, would cause فَسَخَرْنَا لَهُ الرِّيحَ تَجْرِي بِأَمْرِهِ الرُّخَاءَ حَيْثُ أَصَابَ, which is called so that Solomon at the back of the white hole would cause one, push forward, or exhale, or الريح قدوها شهرا. This is meaning of the exhaling, okay, of the 34:12. The major part of this is the 34:12, okay, and so الريح قدوها شهرا, or the morning of it, or the exhale of it, or the cause, steering, quickening, exciting, agitating. These are all the names for the قدوها, one moon gate of the 12 moon gates, one of the constellations of the 12 constellations, one of the bakaras of the 12 cows underneath the molten sea, is breathing or milking out into the emptiness, into vanity, void. And so that is called الريح قدوًا, or the morning of it, or we call it the cause, is still quickening, agitating, opening, appearing, moon rising, dawning, adventing, accelerating, advancing, facilitating. These are all the six, although there are 12 times with lower magnitude, but precisely the same, and it was the moonrise and the moonset that we read 6 times in the Genesis 1. They are precisely this, okay. And now and so speeding up, accelerating, preparing, or the divine determining, or the prime setuping, or the bedrocking, or pave the future way heading upon. This is setting the future ahead, okay, for an itching change to happen upon the past never time, or upon the whenever, whatever, wherever, whyever. In other words, it is catalyzing the favorable causes to show up, as well as, this is both catalyzing, this is both steering, okay, as well as catalyzing the cause of the destruction of the undesirable hazards to show up. And so this is basically acceleration of the changes. And so part of the changes are ta'wil, or awwal, or awlai, revering, and then bringing desirable outcomes, and the other in the bakaraing, or big banging, and or from the vital, from the moon shining, moonset and moonrise, in the moonrises, and then the moon sets. Here we are again, the moon side, here when we say that, and the evening and the morning was another, and so the evening is the qurub or Arab, and then we have the morning, and this is the Baqarain, okay, this morning, and this is the first day. This morning is baqara'ing, and this baqara'ing, we are talking, as for now I'm talking about the morning, and then we will get to the evening. But the morning is to accelerate and prepare or pave the way for something to happen. Also, in addition to that, when it happens, there are pitfalls for that, paving the way for this change to take place, that might reduce or impede its occurrence. And so baqara'ing also stirs up or cause the destruction of those hazards to show up. Okay, and so there are other awliya or ta'wil or awwaliyat, or the primary reasons that can cause the destruction of any agent or any change that might impede the way of something desirable and prevent it from happening. And so baqara'ing is making those things to happen, so that the obstacles would be destructed, and that thing happens. And so again, part of it is mourning it from the past, or pushing it from the past to happen, and also the other side is making sure that nothing stand on its way of becoming. That is called الريح قدوها شهرا. And also, in addition to that, or the catalyzing of the favorable causes to show up, as well as catalyzing the cause of destruction of obstacles to show up. Regarding the past plane or the never night, or the potential pit of the empty itching change shay'an. Okay, that's, and also now we are talking about what? About the, not only the morning, but the moonset, but the night. And also فَسَخَّرْنَا لَهُ الرِّيحَ تَجْرِي بِأَمْرِهِ رُخَاءُ حَيْثُ أَصَابَ. Okay, the same thing. To do what? To pull down. This is the to push forward, to get something to become aqama, or come up out of the nothingness in the pool of the probabilities. You want to get something to reach to the a normal distribution, to pop up out of the nothing, or out of the pool of probabilities. That is called what that is called pushing forward. And the other one is to pull down. Okay, this is where the moonset is happening, or to pull down or inhale, or the arriho ravahoha shahran, and one moon gate, not only for milking, but for intaking, for inhaling, for pulling down, or the moon setting, or slowing down. Okay, or postponing. That's the meaning of it. Or pulling up, we are going to look at it, or calling off, or cancelling the past never time, upon or onto the past never time. And so, in other words, it means that a slowing down, the dampening or the fade away of a desirable or a suitable stimuli for a favorable future, as well as a slowing down what? The deterioration of the causes of destruction of unfavorable obstacles. That's the meaning of the Munset. Regarding the potential pit of the empty itching change things. Okay, and so in other words, the slowing down is making sure that something that has pulled up slows down to go down in the probability curve of the subjective reasoning that is abducted, and also it slows down the deterioration of the boundary conditions that can result in the destruction of the pitfalls. And so the boundary conditions remain high, and then the probability of the destruction of pitfalls also remains high, and so they become they falls down. The obstacles or the unfavorable impeding obstacles, they fall down, and so the favorable, desirable change lasts longer to reaches to the iconed state, or the cone gets time to become iconed according to the commanded or the desired word, or varada, or entered, or the yaradat, or the arata, or the artat, or the erete. In Greek, erete is arta, or arata, or the rata. That is not only Sanskrit, because arada. Arada means the intention of the will of Allah, or the rata, or the arta. In Avesta we call it arte, or arte, or irade of Allah, or the erete, or the word of Allah, or the varad, yarad. These are all verd, ert, or interchangeability of the d and t. And then veye, or veye, all part of one group family. And so that is for the evenings. Okay, and so evenings are basically slowing down, and then the mornings are accelerating. I will explain this in another setting, so that we can realize it better, that how in the middle of nothingness, in the middle of the void, or tohu, without form, in the middle of bagua, with nothing, with tohu, how you can make the change to happen and get this magnificent creation to come into being, kun fayakuning. And that is being done by these two modes, or riho qadawwaha shahran and riho rawahuha shahran, or the rawah, and or the inhaling, and then and this one is qadawwan, or the exhaling. This one stimulates the desirable events and the destruction of the undesirable events. This one pulls up or inhales or slows down the fade away, or postpones or lasts longer, or cancels the cancellation of the desirable events, and also the what do you call it, the happening, or it slows down the happening of the undesirable events by basically slowing down the deterioration of their boundary horizons. And that is how the potential pit of the probabilities of or the potential itching changes become what him Sultan self, or the Fanus Fanai fusion with the Big Banging Bernahim Bush, or the Solomonian singularity, or the Sultan Naziri now has willed according to what Allah Rata Arada Erete or entered. And so as for figure 7, I must remind the reader that although my bidirectional double conic tunerological mother arc form of she'er and shu'ur and consciousness and poetry and word resembles and looks like the Indro-Satanic spatial relativity of Albert Einsteinian digit bodhisattva of the Barack Babun Obama, or the little prick that says funky things like millions of years and gets his Darwin to comes and farts out evolution out of his filthy mouse, or brings black hole with that cripple Nephilim that is gene injected Stephen Hawking, and then the rest of the garbage crew, 70 million of the bodhisattvas and the metal smiths of the Gandegundi or Chundi, the Dark Durga Dragoni Jond, which get his scientist gurus, or the socialist, or the communist, or the economist gurus, or Enki goats, or the Ganesha Ganusi philosophers, feel or ashabul feel that we have again here is for the feel. When we say feel is the Ganesha, and that is the feel of the philosophy. That means the feel.
الفيل.
This is the feel of the, or the Harut. Philosophers, or the Phrygian Capigeniuses, to produce hugely, that's where we read in Daniel 7, hugely fake and fabricated and concocted theories and ad hocs that controvert the rock reality, or al-haqa mal-haqa wa ma adraka mal-haqa, or the beauty faithful reality truth, the name of the king. However, on the contrary, it is the twisted theory of again the figure 7. Although my model arc might look like this Indro-Satanic relativist that sets up the Atman equal to Brahmanic according to Advaita school of Hinduism, and has nothing to do with the Jews, but they are the synagogue of the Satan. In the similar way, however, on the contrary, it is the twisted theory of this orangutan, of this parasitic primate, or the Hare Krishna cobra, or the Parvatic ape, that like a plagiarized form, or the borrowed model, resembles and looks like the firmamental fact form model arc that I am beholding. And again, once we behold that, then we see that this relativistic orangutan is has nothing to present but to read Genesis 1, knows about the real big bangs in of the white hole in the black hole, and how they have created the creation, and then inverted and then relativize it to nothing and said, this is not a spoon, it is you that is bending, there is no spoon, and those kind of things. And then the deep teachings of the Satan that we will get into it later on again one more time. And so this is the handwriting of my mother. فَكَانَ أَبْوَاهُ مُؤْمِنَيْنِ. And so my mother actually wrote this, and this is from this is a writing of the Surah 36, Ayah 82, and it is called Kun Fayakun. And we listen to this song. It's a handwriting of my mother that gave to my brother before going abroad. And so whatever Allah orders, or arada rataz, as arada rata shay'an, of a change or a itching, then that change will become iconed according inside the lower kon or kum fayakun, according to arada rata or varada or the erete or word of Allah.